I'm Raymond Bryant, and I am a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, board certified. And I kind of started in this game like a lot of a lot of nurse practitioners. I came out of school eager to see patients, put the cape on my back, and try to save the world. So I started out working inpatient, and I think a lot of nurse practitioners need to really start their careers out working inpatient because you learn a lot. You learn a ton of lot. You see people that are in crises, depression, suicidal, homicidal. You see a lot of substance abuse inpatient. You see a lot of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, people that are manic and with psychotic features, very grandiose. So you really get that experience when you're in an inpatient setting. Now, uh, we all get in this to make money. So, and of course to help your patients. So, but let's not get things twisted. You want to be compensated. You went to school to kind of increase your market value or your value to the market, and you want to be compensated for the skills you know. Okay. So when I first got into game, you look at salaries, you look at benefits, you look at all the things. So let's start there for a minute. Okay. You come out and they want to make or they want to pay you 120,000, 130,000. Some if you're lucky, 140,000 a year to actually work as the doctor. You got, especially in the states like Illinois, you have a collaborating physician that is kind of like over you, that sends you to the hospital, pretty much to do the things that he does not want to do. He pays you 140, and he may give you benefits, he may not. Most of us come out, we work in 1099. If you get a hospital job, things are a little bit different. The pay is not really comparable to finding a physician. You more like to get the 120, so to speak, but they may give you benefits. But the downside to that setup is that they expect you to stay there 8 to 12 hours, whatever your shift is. They expect you to kind of clock in as if you were on staff at the hospital in case something happens. You're not allowed to come see the patients and leave. So I find the best model is to find a doctor you can work for, and you go in, you see your patients, you may document there, you take the documentation home, and you complete the documentation day to day, and bada bing, bada boom. That's what you get paid, and you do that. And then you're gonna realize that you are in the same situation, if not worse, as when you were a nurse. You're gonna find yourself the need to hustle. And what I ended up doing is, going to another hospital or covering weekends at another hospital. So the way the game is set up, you get compensated by the volume of patients that you see. So the more patients you see, the more money you can make. So that's what I did my first couple of years. And then I was working for not one, not two, not three, but five different hospitals. My salary was it was nice. I was able to do anything that I wanted to do at the time, but the trade-off was I didn't have time to do none of the things that I wanted to do because I was working, seeing patients, or even worse, at home, documenting the night away. I remember one time where I actually stayed up all night long charting on a bunch of patients. And that's a whole nother episode in itself, the documentation and what you need to put on it. But the main focus that I want to talk to my Psych NPs about right now is where the game kind of changed for me. And that was when uh, the doctor that I work for, he got an email that said that they no longer wanted to use him. So we lost uh, one hospital, so I was down to four, and then suddenly we lost another one. So these hospitals, they trade the doctors out rather, pretty frequently based upon, what doctor they can get at the best rate, what the doctors is promising them, you got each doctor underbidding one another to get that contract. But the bottom line is that more than likely the rate that the doctor receives is not going to change. Uh, the rate that you receive is what's going to fluctuate based upon what the doctor has. And to understand this, you got to understand what each patient is worth. And the only way you can do that is you understand the billing codes. Now, the billing codes is the same whether you're in a hospital or private practice. It's just basically what the insurance companies will pay for your evaluation, your follow up, your interactions with the patients. Now, the coding is a little different from based upon what setting you're in, whether in a hospital, whether you're in private setting, but pretty much when you understand the billing, you get a just for just how much that doctor is making off your services. Now, sometimes because of the excitement of just finishing school and having a job as an NP, you are willing to overlook this. And to be honest with you, there is like a training ground, a precepting ground, if I can say that, or it's kind of like you got to pay your dues just to get your foot in the game, so to speak, so you can gain that experience. So, to all my Psych NPs that feel like, hey, you know what, I'm never going to get, pimped by a doctor, I don't want you to think about that. I want you to think like this doctor is going to give me the opportunity to get the experience I need so I can successfully have the knowledge, the expertise to run my own private practice. So you got to be careful to jump straight out of school into the private practice sector and you're not a quote unquote expert, you're not competent enough. So you want that experience in inpatient setting. Now, this is the time where you need to be always thinking of your exit plan. And this is where, I come in with some of this information. You need to be thinking, hey, how can I earn enough money to replace my income with this doctor? Now, if you like me, I love inpatient. I think I will always do inpatient work just because, that's one of the things I like about the profession. So I always want to help people at the hospital. Now, do I have to do 5 hospitals? Absolutely not. So, you know, I want to maybe go see, you know, a reasonable amount of patients during the daytime. You know, that hospital actually serves as a great referral source for my private practice, which I will, take lunch and go to in the evening time for a couple of hours. So that's the way I wanted to set up, my life because I still wanted to do inpatient. So your exit plan should always be, hey, I want to do something on my own as a Psych NP entrepreneur. Now you have to figure out what that is. So the information that I want to share with you is in that lane of private practice. Now, I'm not talking to all the PAs. I'm not talking to full practice nurse practitioners, even though some of the stuff does translate over. My expertise and my wisdom or knowledge, so to speak, is in the psych realm. And that's why I feel like, you know, I'm pretty competent. This is home for me. This is where I do my thing at in this realm. So I feel like I have a lot to offer a lot of people. So I get a lot of nurse practitioners either want me to, precept them through school, nurse practitioners to be, or I get a lot of people to ask me how I start my practice. So I decide to say, hey, let me start a podcast. Let me get some materials out there so I can empower nurse practitioners, because I got a goal. I want to see 1 million patients. I want to help 1 million psych patients. I want to help impact their lives. And as much as I want to say I can do that alone, I think it's easier if I was to empower, all NPs to become phenomenal psych NPs, and some of the things that I'm able to spread kind of goes out into the world, and I can see 1 million patients that way through the efforts of other psych NPs, other phenomenal psych NPs. So back to what I was saying about once you realize the billing and the coding, you will start looking at the game a lot different. So if I just use some roundabout numbers, let's say a psych eval, let's say an insurance company, whether you're in a hospital or in private practice, let's say the insurance company says, hey, you know what, we're going to pay the provider $250 to do a psych eval. And every day you do a follow-up, we're going to give this provider $100. Okay. That's not the exact reimbursement rates. This is just something I'm trying to use to explain to you how this thing works. Now, this is where I feel like I have to remind nurse practitioners that they are providers. Now, some insurance companies will reimburse the NP at an 85% rate. Most NPs make just what the doctors make. It's provider. So when doctors and nurses look at us like, either A, we think we know everything and we're not nurses no more, we forgot what we came for, or B, we haven't went to school enough, so we don't know what we're talking about, and they can't stand us because we don't have the student loan debt and the things that comes with being a doctor, and we're not as knowledgeable. However, most patients, most insurance companies see the psychiatrist and the NP as providers. So that psych eval, whether I do it or Dr. Wonderful does it, the insurance company does not see a difference. They will reimburse the same rate. Whether I see a patient for follow-up or the insurance company, or the psychiatrist see a patient for follow-up, the reimbursement is the same. That's the same $100. So what happens is it takes a lot of NPs not too long to figure out, like, well, he's paying me $50 to do a psych eval, and he's making $200 every time I do a psych eval. So he's making $200, but I'm doing all the work. You see how that works? Or let's say your deal is $40 for a follow-up. Every follow-up you get $40, and that follow-up pays $100 because you understand the billing. So now you can see like where the doctor is making more money off the patient, but you're actually seeing the patient. And this is what upsets a lot of my psych NPs once they figure out the billing. They feel cheated, betrayed, played. They feel like they're being used. And I agree. You actually are being pimped to a certain degree. But you have to be cool with it because you're not going to stay in this position forever. This is why I'm here to try to empower you to get out of this vicious cycle. So many people think that this is it, and they spend years being an NP working this model. And I think the better option is the private practice option. There's other things you can do as a psych NP as well. But I think the better option is always to go private practice. Now, so while you're doing your, let's just call it our orientation phase, while we're working for these doctors, while you're doing that, we can start planning our exit. Okay. Now, you have to get out of this place to whereas you think that it takes so much to start the private practice process. So all it takes really is a mindset, and you have to shift your mindset from this hierarchy of things to whereas you're still functioning, seeing the world as a nurse. You still hey, the doctor is above me. I'm here as a nurse. I need the doctor. I need the doctor to help me do this. I need the doctor to help me do that. You're so like almost codependent on this doctor to do things before you move. And that's just not the case. So again, you're a provider. And that's what I want you to start thinking of yourself. You're a phenomenal Psych NP. You're a provider. You deserve the same rates of reimbursement. You deserve the same respect and in this game because it's you're a provider, you know. And one thing I found out about doctors is, a lot of them are bullies. A lot of times I get myself in trouble because, at the end of the day, I'm a man before I'm anything. So a lot of times when these guys talk to me a certain kind of way, or they look at me like, I haven't achieved as much as they did, or they look down on the profession as a whole. And it's a lot of, NPs out there that are incompetent, don't know what they're doing. But when you have a track record that you have proved that you do have the knowledge, the wisdom, and you are doing it for the right reasons, there's no reason for a doctor to look down on you because you don't have the MD behind your name. So that's the one trap I want you to start fighting back against, that these guys really see themselves in a position of authority. So it's easy. It's easy to be a lion when, there's nothing but hyenas around. It's one of my favorite sayings. Like, when these guys, they see another lion, then all of a sudden, it's a different vibration. It's a different environment altogether. So once they realize that they're not talking to like just a nurse with a prescription pad, so to speak, they're talking to somebody that actually considers themselves as a provider, and they carries themselves as a provider. Now all of a sudden that's a whole different ball game in itself. So that's the first thing. So that mental shift has to take place, getting out of that mindset of you're a nurse or a nurse with a prescription pad. You have to walk, talk, act, and carry yourself as a provider. That's the one. And then you have to stop capping or putting a ceiling on your earning potential. Now, I firmly believe that I can earn $300,000 a month in revenue. Now, there's a difference between profit and revenue. But I believe with the systems that I've learned, with some of the marketing that I've learned, with some of the knowledge that I got from reading books and hanging out with mentors, I believe in my heart that I can make $300,000 a month or earn $300,000 a month in revenue. Now, I haven't reached that milestone yet, but I totally believe it. And one of the reasons is I think I can help that many people. So the second part of this mindset is you got to be in it to help people. And once that drives you and you're saying like, hey, I'm going to help a lot of people out of a crisis situation. I'm going to impact people's lives that's dealing with mental health. I'm going to change the landscape on this thing. And you can start off with like in my area, in my region. I'm in the northwest suburbs out here, like Naperville, Plainfield, Aurora area. And I see people all through Chicago Illinois and stuff. But that's my focus. But my goal is to help a lot of people, and that's my focus. So you know, uh, people don't understand, like, if if your goal is to make money, you go always be like in that situation where you're a little pissed off because you feel like other people don't deserve more money. But you got to look at it like, are the people that's making more money helping or serving more people? Because that's the name of business. You get paid based upon the people you serve. So if you're seeing 8 to 10 patients a day, then you pretty much deserve, 120, 130, whatever they're paying you to do that. Now, if you can manage somehow to see 50 to 100 people a day, and I'll show you how to do that, then now you deserve 50, $100,000 a month in revenue because you're serving more people. People get mad at athletes and entertainers, but think about it. Like, how many people go see a Chris Brown concert versus how many people come in a doctor's office? You talking to the tune, he's selling out 90,000 seat stadiums, and this guy's getting paid, $100, $200 tickets. If you sit real close, I'm sure those tickets are like $500 to $1,000, and then the dude is even charging $1,200, $1,300 to take a picture with him. So he's serving a lot of people. Now, you're not serving 90,000 people in a clinic or as a doctor, and I don't care what kind of doctor you are, you're not serving that many people. So you have a cap, so to speak, to your revenue potential because you're so focused on like just serving this amount of people. That's why you have to kind of like broaden your view to say, hey, how many people can I serve? So if I can serve, in that example I used earlier, I want to serve 1,000,000 people, 1,000,000 psych people, help them out. And I can be like this humanitarian and say, hey, I'm only going to charge you $1 for my services. If I serve 1,000,000 people, that's $1,000,000. So it's like you got to get your mind to like, I need to serve more people. And I feel like I'm a phenomenal Psych NP. And by definition, that's unbelievably great. That's stupendous. That's uh, uh, just extraordinary. So why not want to share what I have to offer with as many people as possible? I feel like that what I have to offer is going to help people. So it's a win-win situation. And I know some of our nurses, we look at this healthcare setting and we think that, you know, if you make money, it's like you committed some type of sin. When really you can set your prices to be affordable. You can do pro bono work. You can do a lot of things to whereas money is not your driver, so to speak. Like I said, focus on helping many people. Even if you sold your services for $1, you'll make a lot of money by default because you're serving more people. So let me just um, kind of like summarize what I'm trying to say. So I think first of all, we need to realize that you are a provider. Your services are just as important as a doctor once we do that. Second of all, you can't depend on your situation because these hospital administrators, they have a bottom line. They're governed by their corporate organization. So a lot of times you are the fat that they got to cut. If it comes down to a doctor or an MP, who do you think they're going to get rid of to make room if that census drop down or something, I don't know, we'll just say catastrophic happens to whereas the hospital suffers. That first cut is going to be all the MPs, okay? So you got to think about that. And then you got to just understand you have to value your work. You have to want to get compensated and valued for those years you spent in school, those late nights you spent studying, the sacrifices that you made away from your families and things like that. You got in this game because you wanted to be respected. You wanted to help people, but you want to be respected, and they should respect those initials, those credentials behind your name, that PMHNP BC. You are a Psych nurse practitioner, okay? And you are valuable in the marketplace. And it's they let us in the game. And I tell people they let us in the game. So you have to be willing to play the game. And it is scary at first because if you're like me, I always work for somebody. I always got a paycheck every 2 weeks. Okay. I always, was able to do doubles and I got compensated for my effort and for my work, in that 2 week time. But once you tap into this private practice, you got to be willing to invest your time, your money, and things like that without expectation of getting paid back right away. So, I got this favorite saying, like, the decisions we make today, you either, you know, uh, do something like put your money, invest in some things. The decisions you make will actually pay you later. Okay. And it's just based upon the things you do today. Now, you cannot do something, work in a hospital, keep it safe, play that game, get a paycheck every month, and think that you straight. And that decision, you may end up paying for that later. So you got to think about it. And it's all about what you do today. So we need to take that first step. You have to change that mind shift that, hey, you're a provider. You should be respected as a provider. Okay, you need to start thinking like invest, building in myself because anything can happen. Okay, and I'm not speaking none of that over nobody's life or anything, but I'm saying you have to build because you want something that's going to pay you later without, so much effort. Like the whole reason for building a business is so that, you're not being compensated for your direct effort in the business. So it's kind of like you build this thing and it's paying you even though you're not actually working in the business, if that makes sense. So it's it's a jungle. I mean, it's rough. The business game is rough, but I think I have made every mistake known to man. I can kind of bring down your tuition, so to speak, your success tax. Because trust me when I tell you, like, there's a tuition in everything. You can't play business. A lot of people want to play business. You can't do that. It's kind of like a person that got a business background, jumping into the NP world and saying, hey, you know what? Hey, I'm Ralph, CEO of, Office Max. Where's the prescription pad? I'm going to start seeing patients and start writing scripts. That's not going to translate, very successfully. And it's the same way in a business. You're a nurse practitioner. Most of us don't have a business background. So you jump into that game, you jump into that jungle, and you go get tore off something real proper. You're gonna realize real fast like how cutthroat it is out there. So my job is to help bring that success tax down, that tuition down, to help you get there faster and less painful ways than I got there, to kind of help you get to that next level, so to speak. But you got to be willing to jump. You got to be willing to come in this jungle. And a lot of people just want to stay in a hospital setting. They want to be around, that comfort level. They want to, get that steady paycheck every 2 weeks. But that's the scam. That's the trick. I'm going to always tell you, you can survive in a jungle or you can just exist in somebody's zoo. All right. This is Raymond Bryant, the phenomenal Psych NP.